Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Raquel. And today we are going to talk about voice. Specifically, the voice of the podcast, our voices, using your voice, finding your voice, all of that. So before we start, I have a quote from Audre Lorde that I want to read that I think captures some of this pretty well. It says, "When we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard or welcomed. But when we are silent, we're still afraid. So it is better to speak." So that is from Audre Lorde. And that actually speaks pretty well to my feeling about leading up to the podcast, right? Because for so long I wanted to do a podcast or a blog or something of that sort, but I was really scared because I didn't think anybody wanted to hear what I had to say, right? But I still had plenty of stuff to say. I just didn't think anybody would want to hear. So I didn't do it for the longest time. And then I just got to a point where I thought, you know what? Lots of people are saying lots of things. Why not me, right? Why not me? I can get out there. I can say some things. I've got things to say that are worth listening to.
Heck yeah.
And getting together with you, Jennifer, to do this, we use our voices together and there's strength in numbers. So
yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to do it alone.
Here we are.
I'm so grateful that you're here with me.
Exactly. I don't think I'd want to do this completely by myself.
No way. Well, that's interesting that you said that, because one of the first things that I came across when I was doing a little bit of reading about voice today, there was a question that was asked that, what are the stories and who are the voices that kept you from speaking? And that really resonated with what you just said. You were just like, you were saying, I didn't think anyone would want to hear me. What's the voice that was telling you that? Was that you? Was that someone you know? Was that like something you learned in childhood? What voice was speaking to you when it was saying that?
Wow, that's a really good question. And I think it's fear. It's fear and it's self-doubt. And self-doubt can come about in so many ways, whether it's people not believing in you, or you not believing in yourself, or maybe trying things before and they not working out, and then just sort of thinking, oh, well, just because this thing didn't work out, other things are not going to work out. And so that, I think that was a lot of it. It was a lot of fear and self-doubt, and honestly, it was a lot of not thinking that my voice was worthy of being heard in some ways.
I get that. I do. I get that. Some people were saying that when they thought about doing podcasting, they thought, I don't have anything new to give. All these subjects have already been covered and there's experts. So why would anyone want to listen to my voice?
Right.
What do you think of that?
Well, and I thought the same thing. I thought, well, I don't have anything new to say. It doesn't have to be anything new, I don't think. I think it just, to be part of the conversation and to have something to contribute is important. And I feel like, who am I not to put my voice out there? Because what I have to say might make a difference for somebody. Maybe the way that I say something will connect with someone, whereas the way that somebody else said it didn't connect. So who am I to stop that from happening?
Yeah, very wise. Very wise. And that's exactly what all the reading I read said. It's like, you don't have to come up with a brand new concept. Most of the art, fashion, music that's already been created has been created, but you take a new slant to it, or you have a new voice to it that no one's heard, but it's the same subject. I think one of the main reasons of doing the podcast was your book club, but also for me, it was more the posts I was doing about my mom and my life on Facebook and Instagram, and then how many people it was resonating with. And they were like, keep posting, keep writing, keep saying, because we all feel this. because we
Right.
all feel the same stuff, but we don't feel safe talking about it.
Right. Right.
So that to me is like the reason for the voice, because you're bold, I'm bold. We've both always been bold. Heck, we threw ourselves off of diving boards.
At least for me, doing the podcast is me reclaiming that boldness.
Ah, that's so awesome.
Yeah, because I lost it for a while.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
So talk about when you lost your voice for a while, because honestly, knowing you, I can't imagine you not not having your voice or
Okay,
not using your voice.
well, my lost voice might look a little different than everyone else's lost voice. It didn't mean I stopped talking, because I don't, always in trouble in school for talking too
Of
much.
course.
Jenny Mormon, go out to the hallway. You've been talking too much. Yeah, almost every day of my life. The loss of my voice actually probably really started in college, because a lot of people go to school because they know who and what they want to be. And I never
Right.
I always thought I was like good enough at everything to participate, but not great at anything. So I could play soccer, I could be on the diving team, or I could join ski club without knowing how to ski. I could do a lot of things because I'm brave, but I was
Right.
never great at anything. And probably because I didn't put the effort in, let's be frank here. But I think in college, a lot of people had direction, and I didn't have any direction. I just went to college because I was supposed to. You're supposed to go to college, you're
Right.
supposed to get your degree, and then you're supposed to go on and get a job.
Mhm.
I think my college years, I wanted to be an anthropologist. And my professor told me, number one, women don't do anthropology. I remember hearing that very clearly. And number two, there are
No.
no jobs in anthropology. And actually, I know for a fact we have someone who graduated from high school with us who has work in anthropology. It was a huge interest in
Right.
me. But anyway, I just knocked around in classes for a while. I did some fashion merchandising for a while. And then I went into advertising.
Mhm.
And what I really liked about that was really my advisor. He was really into volunteering. And I had in my advertising projects, I was always trying to make it be about a nonprofit, or I tried to put something political in it. I tried to have a message in everything that I created. And my
Right.
art was terrible. I'm not a great artist like my kids, but I think I had pretty good ideas. I wasn't able to put them on paper.
Right.
But anyway, he talked about volunteering, and that is why I wanted to join the Peace Corps, was through him. But even in my Peace Corps days, I remember going there kind of with some vague thought about maybe trying to help people and maybe meeting a husband. Even the thought occurred to me, I would meet someone I would be compatible with. All of those years were just sort of knocking around. And then when I returned from the Peace Corps, I lived with my grandfather for a couple of years. He had cancer, and they told me he was going to die in 2 months. So please just stay with him. He was with hospice, and he ended up living for 2 years and 2 months. And I stayed with him the whole time. That is what really changed me. I mean, really changed me, because before that, I was sort of lost and kicking around, and I didn't have a whole lot of empathy for other people. When you're young, you think the world revolves around you.
Right.
Everything is about you. And
Mhm.
that really changed my perspective on life. Right after that, I met my ex-husband. I will say I definitely changed myself to be in that marriage.
Mhm.
I quieted pieces of me. I
Right.
made myself smaller than I was. I didn't, it was early in my career, and I was advancing very quickly,
Mhm.
and that made my ex-husband very uncomfortable. So I tried to downplay those things. I actually really believe this. This is a strange benefit of divorce. I don't think I would have been a successful career person if I had stayed married,
Why do you
because
say that?
oh, I just know it, because when I went to work, I would think about all the hours I was away from my family, and it
Mhm.
would bother me. And then I would feel like I owed them something. Once I got divorced and I moved to my current job and the hours were a little strange, I didn't have to worry about them because I would work late. My kids would go to their dads. I would get up
Mhm.
early the next morning and go in early. I worked really crazy hours for about 5 years, but my kids were with their dad. So
Right.
they were being well taken care of. They were being loved. But if I had tried to have that job during a marriage, there would have been resentment about me not being there.
Right.
So I was able to do the things that made me successful without having it sacrifice my family life. And that, I think that's where women lose their voice a lot of times. I don't regret my short, beautiful little marriage, but I definitely lost my voice during it.
Right.
And it took years to rebuild for sure.
Mhm.
How
Mhm.
about you? When do you think you lost your voice?
So I think I started to lose my voice in college as well, but I think it was different for me than it was for you. I think I started to lose my voice in romantic relationships
Uh,
because I felt like I had to be a certain way.
I felt that.
Yeah. And so I felt like I had to be the perfect girl or the perfect girlfriend that whatever I was wasn't what wasn't what the guys wanted,
Do
right?
the guys even know what they want?
Probably not. No,
No.
probably not. And so I thought, oh, I'm too loud, I'm too this. So I would dumb all that down.
Yes.
And and I would sort of dumb down my intelligence, because God forbid that a woman be smarter or as smart as the guy that she's dating, because that's not a good idea, quote unquote. So yeah, so I would dump things down as far as that went, and then think that just perpetuated itself, in that whatever self-esteem issues I had going into it just continued. And then even with jobs that I would apply for, I didn't apply for big jobs, because I thought, I would just take myself out of the running mentally before I even thought about applying, because I thought, oh, I can't do that, or oh, they wouldn't want me for that, or oh, I don't have the experience, or whatever, just talk myself right out of it. Kind of like with the podcast, or nobody wants to hear what I have to say, I'm not going to do this, whatever. I just took myself out of the running for it. I just got caught in that.
Yeah.
And then I eventually decided, okay, I need to do something. In my head, it was always the same way. You go to high school, you go to college, you go to grad school, then you get a job.
Oh, heck, I wasn't going to any grad school.
Well, my mom, yeah, both my parents nerds. So
I
yeah,
wasn't,
I
I
was
wasn't
going to go
doing
to
all
grad school.
that.
Yeah, I was going to go to grad school. I took a year, 2 years between undergrad and law school, and worked for a little while. And I thought, you know what? Okay, now it's time to go to law school, right? And I think the only reason I had as much of a voice as I did in law school is because it was almost in reaction to my classmates, or in reaction to my professors. Because, here's this, which I'm generally fairly loud anyway, but in comparison to Minnesotans, I'm really, really, really loud.
Really?
So yes, so I stand out, right? And I have strong opinions, and that stands out. And then I would be in class, and I'd have these professors who were pretty old school and conservative, not all of them, but some. And they would just talk over all of the women students, but not over the guys. I wasn't having it, so I would just keep talking. I found that part of my voice. I was never standing up for myself, really. So I don't know, it was always very reactionary.
What I really picked up there was you started with a relationship and you said, if I couldn't be the perfect girlfriend to this man, right?
Mhm.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because the original title to the novel I'm pretending that I'm writing, that I'm not really writing right now, was called Giving Up Perfect, because I actually think that's the plight of women, that
Yes.
we are conditioned that in every single thing, every single part of our life, whether it's our relationships, even our friendships,
Mhm.
our commitment to a book club, our motherhood, if we're doing that, our career, if we're doing that, in
Mhm.
all of these areas. Even if we're cooking, it's all supposed to be perfect. Our house is supposed to be perfect.
Or
How
being the perfect daughter. That's
perfect
one that I
daughter.
beat myself about out all the time.
So all of this perfection can keep you from actually having a voice, can keep you from doing the podcast. And that's exactly what I wanted to talk about on this podcast, because this idea of perfection for women, in my opinion, is just killing us. It's
Mhm.
killing us. And if we waited for this podcast to be perfect, we would never be able to launch it.
That is so true.
Right?
So
How could
true.
we launch it? Because there is no perfection in it. And then perfection by whose standard? By my standard, by your standard, by society's standard. And
Right.
then, okay, we're putting this out to the public. There's luckily we haven't gotten a troll yet, but we will.
Yeah.
You know that there will be people who will have things to say about what we're saying.
Yeah.
And then because of that, do we quiet our voice?
Right. Exactly. No, we don't. We don't. And really, we've gotten to a point where we realize we can't wait for perfection.
Right.
We have to. What's that quote? Perfection is the enemy of good.
I think so.
Right. Yeah. So maybe it's a measure of age too,
Maybe.
that you just get to a point where you're like, I can't keep living my life based on somebody else's
Standards.
standard and somebody else's definition of perfect and what's good enough. You just have to let that go. Or else, I mean, literally, I would do nothing if I lived by that.
See, I would be the exact opposite. I would overdo. That's how I do it. I don't do nothing. I do too much. Every minute of my life is double booked.
Got it.
But I can't possibly, I'm running. That's how I've lived.
Right.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Were any of those men perfect to you? Did you even stop to think, do I really like this guy?
Oh, were they perfect to me? No, no.
Exactly. You're so busy trying to be perfect. I know this because this is me.
Yeah.
I was so busy trying to be like the perfect girlfriend or fit the perfect image that I never even stopped to say, do I like this guy I'm dating?
Right.
Do I like him? Is he a fit for me? That is
Right.
probably why I haven't dated a feminist man, because they're out there. They've got to be out there,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Wow, that's really interesting.
Right. Do we even like them? I mean,
That
of course we like them as a human being, but are they a fit for us?
is a really good question. It's always so much of, am I a good fit for them? Not, are they a good fit for me? That's key.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. And I bet there's at least one person out there who needs to hear that. So whoever that is, feel free, rewind, listen to it again.
I needed to hear that in my dating years because especially the online thing, so busy, like even trying to have the perfect hair that a man would like, or the perfect outfit, or have the right interest, or can I make this person laugh,
Body.
or body. Don't even get me started on body, because that's just I had so much shame around that. So much shame, and going into every first date wondering if this man that I don't even know is going to approve of my body.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. Without even thinking, oh, wow, do we have some things in common? Do we enjoy each other's conversation? Do I like the way he talks? Does he make me laugh?
Right.
Like, where are all those things?
Yeah. So how did you find your voice again?
I would probably have to say through work. I don't want to talk too much about my work on this podcast, but I have a boss that believes in me and lets me create things for the company I work for. And for 10 years now, I've been creating. And although I'm not artistic like my children, I am a creator. I create programs.
Right.
And through that, I really built a lot of confidence. And then I started presenting, and people started coming to me as a mentor, asking my opinion, wanting help. I actually think that's an area that I'm really strong in. It's become a talent of mine to teach leadership, how to be an effective leader. And then also My home is my own. I don't share it with a partner. I share it with my children, and I give them a lot of say about what we do in our house. I guess that's the big downfall. The thing I've struggled with the most is, if I have my own voice, is there a potential partner that would actually accept my voice? That has
Right.
been a big one. And then, yeah, just confidence, and then starting to write. Writing helped,
Mhm.
and expressing things, and then having such a positive response to expressing things.
Right.
Having people say, "Oh, I needed to hear this." So many people contacted me in private message on Facebook and said, "My mom had Alzheimer's and this is what happened," and or just stories about that and things that they went through. And so the more that I shared personal, like the really personal stuff, like I think the first thing I shared that really set off Facebook was when I said, "I don't really like my mom very much right now."
Mhm.
Because nobody wants to say that when their mom has Alzheimer's. Nobody wants to
Right.
say, "I don't like her. She's being nasty. She's messing up my house, and I just don't like her right now." I probably said it much
Mhm.
harsher than that. I mean, there were times when she first got here that I screamed at her. Like I
Mhm.
just lost my shit, and just I would, whenever I'm angry if I start like swearing. I was
Yeah.
like, "What the fuck, mom? What are you doing? God damn it, put your knife." And I'm like screaming at my mom like that.
Yeah.
I posted that on Facebook. And there were some comments, but
Mhm.
most of them came private messenger. And people were like,
Right.
"Yeah, I've done that. I've lost my shit. Yeah, that's really hard not to lose your shit. Like, that's normal." And so many people that resonated with them. Because you lose your shit once in a while doesn't mean you hate your mother. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means I needed better coping skills, like I needed to figure out some boundaries for us and
Yeah.
some ways to make this work, which we eventually did. But it didn't make me a horrible person. It made me a human being. And I
Mhm.
think that, in a way, is the voice. I got it. You find your voice when you can authentically tell the truth.
That makes sense.
I think that when you can tell your truth, I think you've found your voice. And that
That is
doesn't mean
that
I
is
tell
very true.
everybody every little tiny detail of my life, although it probably appears that way. What
Right.
about you?
Well, no, but you can put words to it, and that's important.
How did you get back to your voice?
That took a long time. Took a really, really, really long time. I think it's partly through therapy. I've been in therapy forever. I mean, definitely probably since college for various reasons throughout the years, off and on. I think it was also partly because thankfully I've always been so fortunate to have really amazing friends and to be surrounded by really awesome people.
That's good.
They would say these things to me like, "Oh, Raquel, you're a nice person, or you're really intelligent, or you have a or whatever." And I would just be like, "Oh, gee, thanks." And I've kind of waved it off. Some friends of mine sat me down and they said, "We want you to see you the way that we see you."
Oh, that's so nice.
Right. And I thought, huh, I want to see me the way that they see me too. Because I realized
Oh,
that I didn't see myself through their eyes. And I saw myself with this crazy distorted lens that didn't take into account the things that were good about me, or the things that I had accomplished. And I was comparing myself to all these other people and just looking at the surface.
yes, of course.
Oh, I don't make a lot of money, and oh, I don't have the husband and the, whatever, the big house, and all these things. And I was just looking at the outside.
Yeah, of
I
course.
wasn't looking inside. And I also had this sort of warped notion, which I think everybody has from time to time, that nobody else had the baggage that I had, that everybody else was perfect, or their lives were hunky-dory and there wasn't anything that they were carrying around that they weren't happy about, that I was the only one who's carrying around all this stuff. Yeah. And so through therapy and through great friends who took the time to say those things to me, and then through just my own personal investigation and cutting myself some slack and reading all the books and all the things, and starting to celebrate my wins and my goodness. And but I had to redefine success for me.
Mhm.
And that was huge. That was huge in me coming back to my voice and learning to love myself again, and to use my voice, and to find it first, and then to use it as I got older. Right around my 49th birthday, maybe like right before that, I decided that I didn't want to make decisions based out of fear
Oh, so
anymore.
good. So good. So good. Yes. No more fear-based decisions. I just sang. I was so
And
excited.
it was beautiful. And and I just decided, I can still feel the fear. The fear is always going to be there, but I can't let that be the basis for whatever decision I make. I've tried to move forward from there, and so starting the book club, starting the podcast, feeling better about myself, allowing myself to have a different definition of success, allowing myself to speak up for myself,
Mhm.
and to not just sort of sit and take it when somebody does something or says something that's inappropriate or hurtful, or that sort of thing, that I can stand up for myself from a place of self-love and strength, and not from a place of fear. It wasn't overnight, flip a switch, found my voice again. It was a years long journey for me. And I think even now, I have to make the decision almost every day to continue to use my own voice, and to not let my voice be buried again.
I often wonder if I was in a real serious relationship, if I would have my voice. I mean, and that's no slam on men. That's my own issue. Why such a tendency? My kids said, my oldest the other day said, every time you have a boyfriend, your interests change. And there's some of that that's always going to be
Yeah.
natural, right? But
Right. Yeah.
she's like, you kind of morph yourself a little bit. And I think
Mhm.
that's true to some extent. I also really like to learn new things. Like it
Right.
really drives me. I think this is why I never can really truly say, can I truly be in a relationship? Because I no longer can squash myself for a man. I can't do
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. Mhm. No, I
But
get that. I get that a lot.
is there a relationship out there where you don't have to do that? I don't know the answer to that.
I hope so.
I hope so too. I would be really interested to know if the women out there that have these successful marriages or relationships, it doesn't have to be a marriage, if they feel like they have their true voice within their marriage, or if it's necessary to compromise in order to be in that relationship. Because I
Well,
know that there is some that must be necessary, right?
well, see, I would word it a little differently, because I don't know. I don't think compromise is the same as losing your voice. I think too much compromise can lead to losing your voice.
What about little tiny compromises all the way down until suddenly your voice is gone?
Ooh, I think
I
that
had a
probably does happen.
I feel like I had a relationship a long time ago that in the beginning was really awesome and really amazing, but then little tiny things happened along the way. One day I woke up and I was like, what the fuck happened? And realized from day one, it wasn't a day one thing, tiny little things that happen along the way. And suddenly you're like, wait a second, what
Yeah.
the heck happened?
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe that goes back to what I was saying before, that it has to be a daily decision to use your voice.
I think it does.
Yeah, and I'm not saying yelling and screaming and waving a banner every day about everything. I mean, that's not it.
I don't know how you feel the sensation, but when I know something, like my intuition is telling me something, I feel it in the pit of my stomach and it's telling me, like, you got
Mhm.
to say something, you got to speak up on this. And I just can't ignore that anymore
Mhm.
at all. But
Mhm.
I wonder if I was in a long-term secured marriage in a home if I would deny that voice.
Mm,
I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know. I don't have enough experience. I've never made it that long.
Yeah. Yeah. Neither have I.
I
mean,
think it would be interesting to talk to a group of people who have these successful, just women. I just want to hear
yeah.
from women, these successful marriages. Do you have a voice in your marriage? And not just a voice. Do you have your authentic voice? Are you able
Yeah.
to be authentically yourself within inside of a marriage? I really
Yeah.
want to know the answer to that.
Yeah. Seriously, listeners, we would love to hear from you, and we'll keep it all anonymous. I mean, we don't want to create any strife in anybody's relationships, but
It would be interesting to know.
yeah, let us know.
In talking about voice, you and I
Mhm.
set out to have this podcast, and we really said clearly it's a feminist podcast. And
Mhm.
I know both of us have taken a little bit of flack for that. And I was thinking about that. Using just that word does turn some people off, right? It's automatically a not interested in that podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why did we choose to use that voice then, knowing that it would turn some people off?
Because we can't be all things to all people. We just can't. And I think when you try to be all things to all people, you lose part of yourself. And I think that's part of what happened to both of us in certain previous relationships, is that we were trying to be so much to the other person that we weren't thinking about ourselves. And I'm not saying we have to be, I'm not saying that being aware and caring for yourself is selfish, but I do think it's necessary. And I do think, especially women, we can take being selfless too far, to the
Yeah.
point where we ignore who we are and what's important to us and what's key for us. So using the word feminist for me is key. It's an important part of how I identify. I know it's an important part of how you identify. And I feel I give voice to that, because there's so many forces, at least in this country, that want to tear that down. And I think it's important to continue to bolster that, because we are half of the population. We are important. We are an important part of this society, and we have to stand up for each other and for ourselves. And so that's why I put that out there. And little girls need to know that it's okay to stand up for yourself. It's okay to stand up for other women. I think it's important for little boys to know that it's important for a little girl to feel strong in herself and to not feel like she's less than a little because she's a girl.
So it doesn't scare you that we might lose some potential listeners because we chose that as part of our tagline?
No.
Me neither.
So
Me neither. But I do think that it is sort of,
somebody brought that up to me before we actually launched.
yeah. What did they say?
They were saying, well, if you want to reach the most people, maybe take that out. And I thought, well, I don't necessarily want to reach the most people. I want to reach the right people.
My daughter said that feminism, my youngest daughter this time, said that feminism is a buzzword, and buzzwords just turn people off and turn people on without them really understanding what the word is about. It just has sort of an emotional reaction, kind of
Mm,
like when we were talking about critical race theory last week.
mm,
And people just say, oh, I hate critical race theory. And then you say, well, what is it? And they're like, I don't know.
yeah.
Like, feminism has some of that as well. People have their idea of what feminism is, but is it accurate? Is my idea of what feminism is accurate? Probably not to another person.
Yeah. But that's the benefit of having our voice and using it, is we get to be part of the conversation. And I was thinking about that when I was preparing for today's episode. There was a time in society at large when women weren't allowed to have a voice, or we weren't allowed to use it. And we are fortunate enough to live in a time where not only can we use our voice, we have so many avenues at our disposal,
That's true.
And so it would be such a shame to have all of this technology and reach and thought and knowledge base at our fingers and not use our voice to put our information and our message and our thoughts out there.
Yeah. Plus, you know what, Raquel?
Yeah.
I just really like talking with you on the podcast. I don't know about our like voice and our reach and I think it's actually really fun. This has been a really fun experience for me. Cause I like to talk. I could talk.
It is.
I could do it for hours.
Oh yeah, exactly.
She also said, Gabby said that these buzzwords sometimes just trigger all this emotional response. She said, like on the internet, when they talk about defunding the police, when they could have just talk about funding other alternatives instead of defunding, like they pick this word that has so much of a response to it that people are like, oh, you're going to take money away or resources away, and really it's partially what the movement is about, but it's not really what the movement is about. The movement is about getting resources for the community, but we didn't say it that way. I think when she's talking about buzzwords and all of that, it's super important. But when I think about people not listening to the podcast because it's a feminist podcast, I think those are the people that probably should listen.
I think you're right. Hopefully, with it being, two regular women talking, as opposed to, some, talking head expert, whatever, that maybe it's a little more approachable.
It might be.
Yeah.
And then one of the articles I read said that this was about finding your voice in podcasting. They said you're going to want to conform, you're going to want to blend in for fear of being judged, for fear of having what do you call those things?
Trolls.
Yeah, for fear of having the trolls.
Yeah.
And that's like the worst thing you can do to your voice is to conform, to blend in, to let you already said it. We're not going to make fear-based decisions. We're going to talk about what we want to talk about because it's important to us.
So I have a question for you. I mean, you've talked about your daughters and, them talking about buzzwords and things like that. Daughters are at really formative ages right now, high school and college. And that's when a lot of your personality and you start getting interested in causes and movements and other people and, just going outside your world, right? So how have you helped your daughters find and then develop their voices? And especially their voices maybe distinct from yours and then also distinct from each other?
Oh, that's a really tough question. Boy, you're like putting me through the paces.
Well, I'm curious. I really want to know.
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that question 100%. I don't know that I've helped them find their voices, but I have always allowed them to speak. Remember in the last podcast when we were talking about how I dated a few men who said, oh, they argue with you. And I said, no, we're having a discussion. We have always discussed everything in this household. Whatever they want to talk about, we talk about. Whatever I want to talk about, we talk about. We mostly over the years, we've always had dinner together. We sit down, we talk, I ask questions. But the thing is, get into these really deep, interesting conversations with them or with friends that come over, boyfriends. We've talked about everything at our table. We've talked about, in front of my youngest, we've talked about drugs. We've talked about rape. We've talked about sexually transmitted diseases. We've talked about critical race theory. We've talked about finding your voice. I talked about it with Gabby today, just about kind of having an open conversation. But the thing that's unique about voice is that both of my daughters were born with very different, distinct personalities. And I know a lot of mothers say this. I had parenting techniques that really worked with my first daughter, that we really like jived with. And then I tried the same thing with my youngest daughter, and that was a no-go. It was not effective. And I think it's just like really taking that, like she had such a temper tantrum kind of personality as a baby.
Mhm.
She would just like lose it. Her body would stiffen up. She would scream and holler, but she couldn't say what she needed.
Mhm.
Couldn't get her to speak words. And this really is about finding your voice. I would have to
Right.
stop whatever I was doing, focus 100%, put her on my lap, look at her eye to eye and say, what is it that you need?
Wow.
And then wait, because it was quiet, 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 quiet. What do you need? What do you need? And then
Wow.
she would go, and I couldn't hear her. Gabby,
Wow.
what do you need? And I couldn't hear her. And finally it got a little louder. And then one of the most frustrating things for her as a kid was, she'd be upstairs or whatever, and she'd ask me for something. And I'd say, what? I didn't hear you. And she'd go, never mind. Because I didn't hear her. She didn't feel heard. I'd have to go. She's an introvert. She's not like super talkative, and she doesn't engage with a lot of people. Finding a voice is difficult. When
Mhm.
she is a great writer. She's a great writer and a great reader. So her
Mhm.
voice comes out that, and also an artist. They're both artistic. They both express their voice in their art. Now with my oldest, she told me everything from day one, everything about anything about, I mean, that has just been like, just a deep personal connection. And when she's expressing her voice and her art, like when she sits down to do a project, it's like 100% concentration. There's no pulling her away from a project if she's into it. And it's usually something she cares deeply about,
Mhm.
like sustainability or human rights or any of the myriad of causes that she believes in. So that, I don't know if I could say I helped them develop their voices. I wanted them to have a voice. So I do think I
Right.
worked very hard in that direction, not to squash what they had to say.
Right. Well, I don't think you give yourself enough credit, because I do honestly hear you, and I believe that you did help your daughters find and develop their voices. I mean, first off, by having the conversations with them,
We talk a lot.
with them, and focusing on her and saying, tell me what you need. Because there's so often that we don't look at somebody and say, tell me what you need, and then actually listen.
Yeah.
And actually truly listen. And that, and you keep doing that, right? With both of your daughters. So, and you aren't trying to make them have your opinion. You're not trying to make them echo you. So honestly, you have got to give yourself more credit, because
Okay.
you have, as an outsider looking in, I really honestly believe that you have done something so incredibly significant in the way that you relate to your daughters, and the way that you are so open with them, and you allow them to express themselves, and you encourage them to express themselves.
I mean, they are their own humans.
Of course.
I'm
Yeah.
their mother, but they are their own unique individual selves, and that's what I want for them. My mom always said I had sort of a gift of communication, of like slowing down, connecting. She would say that she would deliver a message and it would come out harsh. I would deliver the same message and it would have the right spin for that person. That's what she
Wow.
would say.
That's huge. That's a skill that not everyone has.
It definitely is a skill. I probably didn't recognize it as a skill, but my boss did. And that was very helpful. And that's what I meant about finding my voice.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you are pretty committed to using your voice pretty much all the time. Like, that's very important to you.
I guess that is one thing about me, is I've never been able to not say what I have to say. I've never been able to hold it in.
Right. Right.
And that's a curse sometimes in relationships. I don't really know how to have an argument, because I can go ballistic. I don't know how to like self-monitor that a little, I guess.
Right. Well, that's a skill too, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, that's definitely something that at least I have had to learn. I mean, because I would go the other way. I would just completely shut down and I wouldn't say anything. So I wouldn't stand up for myself, or I wouldn't have the conversation, say with, a coworker or a boss or whatever. I would just internalize all of it. Or I would go to a friend and I'd vent to them, or I'd, go into the bathroom and cry my eyes out. Over the years, that just ate away at me. And I just thought, I don't like this. I don't like feeling this way. And I would stuff it down and suck it up and all that for so long that it eventually would get to a point where I couldn't ignore it. It would just like sort of, it's just like a fuse, right? Like it would just blow up.
Oh yeah.
And I would say what I should have said, time and time again. I should have said it, a year ago or 6 weeks ago or whatever the thing was. And so it had all that time to fester and build up, and then I would say it the wrong way. And it was just,
I've done that, Raquel. All of us have done that.
And so I was just like, I probably need to figure out how to use my words in between all that, so that it doesn't just blow up at the end. And that took time. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, because God knows I'm not perfect, but I have gotten better. Let's say that.
What do you think is it in our society? And I think men and women both do this, where we just don't say what's on our mind. What is it about society that we so much kind of want to avoid that conflict? What is that about?
I don't think we learn how to have difficult conversations in a constructive way. That affects all of us. And it's not just the big, conversations about race and religion and money. It's all the other little conversations. So we just let stuff fester, and then it just blows up. We just don't learn what we should learn.
So my therapist has been talking to me about that a little bit. It came up in our last session, and she basically gave me this technique where she said, when you're disagreeing with the person you're talking to, really listen. Like first thing, like listen to what they're saying, and then acknowledge what you've heard. Like either say, oh, I hear what you're saying, I understand, or even repeat back kind of part of what they said. Acknowledge it so that they know that they've been heard. And then if you're really truly in disagreement, but you don't want to get into the fight, say something like, have you ever considered A, B, and C? Or something like that, where you're, and so I've been actually trying that technique a little bit. I'm not good at it yet, but, but it made a lot of sense to me, because I had a relationship that was really going well, except for the political fights. We had political fights like crazy because we don't see eye to eye on a lot of these things. And so we had a discussion about the feminism topic. And I really did try to listen to that. And so I said, tell me your viewpoint of feminism. And he told me, and I thought, okay, I hear what he's saying. So if he believes that feminists hate men, of course he doesn't like feminism. That doesn't make sense. So then my thought was, okay, consider that I'm a feminist and I don't hate men. So maybe feminism isn't exactly what you think it is. So like we started it didn't go super great. It got more complicated, but it was a good. And then also in my work, we talk about these difficult conversations of giving feedback. A lot of leaders don't give feedback at all because it's a difficult conversation. And then they're afraid that the person is going to take it personally and they're not going to work very hard or whatever. But when I get into a group of leaders, I always say, how many of you, if you weren't doing your job 100% right, would want to know? And every single one of them raises their hand, right? Every single one. Everybody wants to know. And yet all of us are afraid to tell them.
Wow.
Everybody's afraid to give the feedback, but it isn't because they don't want to know. It's that we are so not used to receiving feedback that when we hear it the first couple of times, it hurts, it stings.
Yeah.
Oh, I disappointed. Oh, I'm not perfect. But then as we get used to the process of giving and receiving feedback, or having these conversations like with the ex-boyfriend of giving a thought, hearing a thought, then we can get used to the comfortability of that conversation, and it doesn't have to be so hard.
Mhm.
Can be more of a, you gave me some feedback about the podcast. You said to me, sometimes when you make the post, you say I instead of we, and this is our podcast. That's really good feedback, right? What if you held on to that and I kept writing, I do this and I do that, and it really is we,
Right.
and your resentment would have grown and I wouldn't have known.
Yep.
That feedback loop is so important. And when
Mhm.
you said that, of course, it hurt because I say, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I hope I didn't hurt her feelings. It hurt for a little bit, but then I'm like, okay, that's an easy fix. This is an easy fix. So
Yeah.
just getting used to that process. Once
Mhm.
we've given and received feedback, it doesn't hurt so much anymore.
Mhm.
But we
Yeah,
have a
getting used to it.
really hard time as a society with this whole
Mhm.
process.
Right. You know, I wonder if is that true the world over, or is it just a US thing? I would be really interested to know that.
I don't know.
Please let us know what y'all think, because I really would love to know that.
Well, going back to Brene Brown, she
Mhm.
has a podcast about leadership. It's called
Mhm.
Daring Leadership. And they do all kinds of studies. You know, she's a researcher. They did a study asking, sending it out to all sorts of companies all over the world, asking what is the number one characteristic you need in leaders to move forward to have a healthy company. And although the words were
Mhm.
different, it was the only survey where 100% of the answers were the same. And, you know, they worded it a little differently,
Mhm.
but the actual characteristic was courage. And because it was about this difficult conversation thing, what they
Mhm.
said is we need people that are able to give feedback so that their team members can grow, because people don't
Wow.
grow without feedback. They continue to make tiny mistakes that really are of no consequence, but because it's over and over and over again, it becomes consequence because no one gives them feedback. And that
Mm.
the courageousness to give feedback, to say I have a different idea, to tell your friend or coworker when there's something that's not right. They said courage. And so that goes right back to the
Mhm.
whole, that really comes right back around to having a voice. You have to have courage.
That ties in too with we're always asking our listeners for feedback because we really do want to know, because we
Right.
really do want to make this podcast as good as it can be. Listeners, I mean, we really want to know what you or different ideas for us to cover.
I've received a little bit of feedback. Have you?
I have received a little bit. In fact, there was one of our listeners who commented on the show, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, that's nice.
And
Is this our
yeah,
first real public comment?
yeah, it's our first real public comment. So I'm
Yay!
very excited about this. Yeah. So okay, here it is. All right. So it says, and this is from Eldun313. So thank you, Eldun313.
Our first
Uh,
comment.
Yay, woohoo! Says, thanks for the interesting and well-presented content! Exclamation point. That's so
Nice.
awesome. I like that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, feedback, we love it. Y'all, please give us feedback. We love to hear this. And we'll read your comment on the show. And so you get to have a few minutes of fame yourself. So that's awesome.
I
So
had a friend call me about our feminist podcast, and my friend has little boys.
mhm.
I guess they're not super little anymore. They're probably teenagers also, but she's raising boys, whereas I'm raising girls. She said that she had a little bit of issue with our feminist podcast because we had that section that my girls were talking about, and
Mhm.
how they said that girls can't have any kind of differences because everyone will make fun of them. And she
Mhm.
said that her boys experienced the same thing, just like you
Mhm.
said, that was a thing in high school where people pick on each other. But she
Mhm.
said, also think about this. Is it really boys picking on girls, or is it other women picking on women, or other girls picking on other girls? Aren't girls sometimes more mean to other girls than boys are mean to girls?
Maybe.
Oh, I remember it 100%. We talked about it.
Yeah, I don't, yeah.
I mean, think about what's that movie with Mean Girls?
Yeah.
The reason everybody can resonate with Mean Girls so well is because mean girls exist.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, because that's what this podcast is about. I had some mean girl tendencies. I remember sitting in the mall with my friends, chilling, just taking a pose. And every single person that walked by, we were like, oh, I can't believe she's wearing that. That looks ugly with that. That's terrible. Look at that haircut. Oh my God, what are her bangs doing? Oh, that color's horrible. Blah, blah, blah. We just sat there and dogged out everybody who walked by.
Wow.
Yeah, you never did that? I'm a bad person.
Yes, probably.
And worse than that, I do remember in high school, different groups of girls being very mean to the other groups of girls. The cattiness between girls and also women. I hear women that have young daughters being catty about each other. So I think she had a valid point, and I thought that was really good feedback.
Good feedback.
And part of being a feminist is knowing that women hurt each other too. It's not just men.
That is true. That is true.
And that's why feminism is for everyone, because
Right.
women, feminists, women, all women should do their best to support other women, to honor other women, you said it about Oprah. She reached her hand back and brought other women forward.
Mhm.
That should be our goal, is to support other women rather than knock other women.
Absolutely.
And I'm not perfect. I'm not
No.
perfect.
Nobody is.
I had my days of knocking other women, but that's not my MO anymore.
Good. Well, you know what? You have the capacity to learn and to grow and to utilize it. Yeah. I mean, for all of us, thank God, So I think, so thank you to your friend for giving us that feedback.
I didn't know I was going to bring it up today, but I think it's really important.
Yeah, I appreciate that feedback.
Me too.
So just wrap things up a little bit. I was thinking about this when I was preparing for today's episode. I came up with a whole bunch, but what 3 words, like we always seem to do, what 3 words would you use to describe our voice for the podcast?
Real, honest, and strong.
Ooh, I like those.
How about you?
I like those. I chose brave, thoughtful, and I have a whole bunch of other ones, but one I'll pick: pro-woman.
Why did you pick? Give me your words again.
Brave, thoughtful, and pro-woman.
Tell me, why did you choose thoughtful?
Because we put a lot of thought into the topics that we're going to cover, how we're going to talk about them, what effect or impact our conversations might have on our listeners. And we want to hear from them. So we want to know what their thoughts are about these. And so sort of the inverse of that is that we want our conversations to create thought in our listeners so that they're thinking about what we're talking about. I have to say, I know I said one of my words is pro-woman, and somebody out there is going to hear that and think, oh, it means anti-man. That is not what it means. That is not what I mean.
Just like pro-life doesn't mean I'm sorry.
Pro-choice doesn't mean anti-life.
Yes, thank you. So you say it better than I did.
Pro-choice does not mean anti-life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. What a great episode, Raquel.
Very good.
I am so glad you found your voice and that you wanted to do this podcast, because for me, it's fun. It's a release. It's awesome. Yeah. I love it.
I love this so much. I'm having such a good time, and I'm so thrilled to be doing this with you. So thank you for sharing your voice. Mwah. Love it.
Bye, Raquel.
So thank you very much. All right. Bye, Jennifer. Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.